statement. And I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation, please.
Благодарю вас.
Thank you. We're grateful to Estonia for convening today's meeting, and we're pleased to welcome you, Madam President, as our Council President today. We would like to thank Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres, UNICEF Executive Director, Ms. Four, and the other briefers for their informative statements. We also note the efforts of the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Children in Armed Conflict, Ms. Gamba. The Russian Federation attaches high priority to the topic of child protection. We have carefully studied the report of the Secretary General, which overall provides an adequate picture of the state of affairs in this area. We regret to note that children, being one of the most vulnerable population groups, continue to suffer from hostilities, despite the measures taken at the national and international levels. We decisively condemn violations of international humanitarian law, particularly those committed by participants in an armed conflict against children. The parties responsible for these crimes must, after due investigation, be prosecuted. We consider both deliberate attacks on children and other categories of protected persons, as well as the indiscriminate or excessive use of force, to be unacceptable. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the already dire situation of children in conflict zones. The main impact has been on social and economic aspects of their lives. Yet, some countries continue to exert pressure and actively apply unilateral coercive measures, which, among other things, prevent the delivery of COVID vaccines, as well as equipment for diagnostics and treatment. Madam President, we take note of the activities of the UN Security Council Working Group on Children in Armed Conflict. We believe that the approach taken to considering child protection within this unique mechanism should be a comprehensive one, as provided for in Security Council Resolution 1612 and subsequent Council resolutions. This implies giving equal attention to all 6 categories of grave violations against children, both within the framework of the monitoring and reporting mechanism and in the activities of the corresponding thematic working group of the Security Council. It should be recalled that the primary responsibility for the protection of children in conflict lies with states, and the Security Council Working Group should primarily address the most acute and large-scale situations of armed conflict on the Council's agenda. Madam President, we are extremely concerned by the situation of children in Syria in territories not controlled by Damascus, namely in the Idlib de-escalation zone and in the northeast of the country. Idlib is controlled by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which has been designated a terrorist organization by the Security Council, and the local population is essentially being used by terrorists as a human shield. Children in particular are suffering from the tyranny of local authorities. An increase in child and early marriages has been reported in the enclave, and school children are barred from leaving the enclave to take exams on government-controlled territory. The situation in the Al-Hal and Raj IDP camps in the northeast of the country is no less catastrophic. Temporary accommodation centers are overcrowded, and extremist ideology and religious radicalism are being actively propagated there. We reiterate our call to states to fulfill their obligations under international law and to take measures to repatriate the children of their citizens from conflict zones. We are ready to share our experience in this. Since 2018, we have brought 318 of our children home from Syria and Iraq, and we are actively working to rehabilitate them. In addition, the situation in Syria has been made much more difficult by the illegal unilateral sanctions imposed by the West. Syria is experiencing a shortage of essential goods, food, clean drinking water, infant formula, medicines, and textbooks. While verbally expressing concern over the fate of children, Western donors refuse to finance not only projects to rebuild the country, but even infrastructure projects for early recovery. The situation in Afghanistan is also worrying. On Tuesday, June 22nd, the Security Council already had a detailed discussion of the deteriorating situation in that country. Unfortunately, the situation there has changed very little in terms of the protection of civilians and children over the past 20 plus years. Statistics tragically show that children are regularly subjected to airstrikes, including those carried out by foreign troops. Afghanistan continues to be rocked by bloody terrorist acts, the latest of which were perpetrated by ISIL. The victims claimed by these monstrous attacks include children. One recent example of such atrocities is the attack on a girls' school in May. We condemn these crimes and call for an investigation and for punishing those responsible. Child protection in Africa is a complex matter, particularly in countries on the Security Council's agenda, such as the DRC, Libya, Mali, Somalia, Sudan, CAR, and South Sudan. And the violence affects not only girls, but also boys who are much more frequently recruited by armed groups. For example, significantly more crimes are committed against boys and young men in Somalia. The activities of the Boko Haram group based in the Lake Chad Basin have long acquired a transboundary nature. Madam President, something that causes us particular pain is the situation in Ukraine. For more than 7 years now, the situation there has been dominated by political chaos, civil war, legal nihilism, and rampant ultranationalism. For the 8th year running, the regime in Kiev, which came to power as a result of a coup d'etat, is trying to do away with the inhabitants of eastern Ukraine. They're doing this using the regular army as well as punitive volunteer battalions brandishing Nazi symbols and with the use of heavy weapons. Schools, hospitals, playgrounds, as well as key infrastructure continue to come under targeted fire from the Ukrainian military. During the armed conflict, over 100 children have died at the hands of the Ukrainian military. 93 children's deaths has been documented on the territory of the Donetsk People's Republic. 263 children were injured and 43 were left disabled. The death of 34 children has been documented on the territory of the Luhansk People's Republic. These are the terrible figures of the Donbass tragedy. That is why the inhabitants of this region continue to bring flowers to the Alley of Angels, which is a monument to the children who died at the hands of the Ukrainian military, which raised its weapons against its own people. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his statement.